Hey guys, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great as always, and hope you're having a good week and all that. In this video, we got another bunch of stories from all over the place once again. We got some deep woods stories, some stories from down south, a story from Wyoming, a story about an apartment, and probably a story that I'm forgetting. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, then for sure pull up a stump and we can jump right into the video. Thank you for watching. This happened quite a while ago. I was sitting in the woods with my friends and we had just decided to start heading home, it being 4 a.m. and all. We're walking through the trees and we come onto a path. We're just laughing and joking and everything's good. We're having a really good time. All of a sudden, these two women appear. They're heading toward us. Deep in the woods at 4 a.m. We're like, this is really weird, what the hell? We both go silent, but then they pass us. They had no face, neither of them. We could see them clearly, but there was just nothing for a face, like a void almost. We walk for another minute or so, we regain our senses and start freaking out. We look behind us, and the women are gone, nowhere to be seen, and we never saw them again. This happened to me when I was about 7 or 8 years old. There was a torrential thunderstorm. There was all this flooding in the local town and all kinds of thunder and lightning. At some point, in the middle of the night, I woke up to go to the bathroom. But when I get back in my bed, I see this tall silhouette outside my window. The silhouette has to be 7 or 8 feet tall, and I can hear the silhouette calling my name in a short whisper. Hey, come open the window. I just want to talk. The voice is exactly the voice of my dad. This was around the time my parents fought over custody. I was told to never go with him if it wasn't a scheduled visit. My dad had tried to take me for visitation before when he wasn't allowed. He picked me up from school and just kept me for a week when I was younger, before letting me come back home. The voice keeps asking me to come to the window, and it wants me to open the blinds and come outside. The voice starts to get angry that I'm ignoring it. It says that it knows that I'm in there. I get scared, and I run to my mom's room and I ask if I can sleep in her bed. She's just annoyed that I woke her up and tells me to go back to your room and get in your bed now. I refuse, but she won't share the blankets with me. So I decide to sleep at the foot of the bed because I'm just so terrified. The next morning, I go outside at the window, and there's a lot of thick red clay mud. I search for footprints, but I can't find any. Surely there would be some footprints, especially if I saw that thing outside my window. A few days later, though, I asked my dad where he was that night, specifically around 4 a.m., and my dad says, "What do you mean? I was asleep in bed. That was a really bad storm the other night. I wouldn't want to be caught out in that." I never found out what that entity or thing or who it was, but it never happened again. Has anyone heard of anything similar? This is a little short one that happened in 2018. So I was waiting at the subway station for my bus to show up, and I see this old lady come up the stairs and get on a bus that's heading north. 45 seconds after the bus had just left, I see the same old lady come up the stairs and wait for the same bus, almost like it was a loop. The same outfit, the same features, the same everything, even carrying the exact same bag. I don't know if this was a glitch or what I saw. This isn't super exciting, but I do have an experience. I was 16 and I just started driving. I was living in northern Wyoming, and I was leaving my girlfriend's house around midday or so. On the outer road that loops around the entirety of my town, there's a small lake or large pond, whatever, to the inside of the road and at the farthest point away from town. As I'm rounding the corner, I catch something. And I think that it just must be some random people, like rednecks or whatever. So I pull over to get a better look because I'm curious if I know them. And if I know them, I'm gonna ask what they're doing out there. I see this large black wolf, at least as long as I am tall, standing in the middle of the lake. There's no one around, so I just stand there and watch it for a minute. It's looking back at me and not moving at all. And then all of a sudden, it stands up on two legs. I slam the truck into first and I just peel out of there. I never saw that again, but Wyoming has some weird stuff going on. So there was this time that I had to live at my friend's house for a few days. My friend usually went to bed earlier than me, so my friend goes to bed while I stay up. The first night, around 2 a.m., somebody starts ringing the door. It's somewhat startling, but I ignore it because it's not my house. The second night, around the same time, someone rings the door again. I'm starting to get worried because this isn't really normal. The next day, I asked my friends if it's usual to have people ringing late at night like this, and he says, "I've never heard anything, but that sounds really weird." That night, the bell rings once again. This time, I decided I should go check the door. So I go up to the door and I look through the peephole. There's a kid standing in the front of the door, just looking down at the floor. Somehow, he opened the building door, which is locked, and decided to ring on this door only. I think this is really weird, and I obviously never opened that door. But after that night, after I saw the kid, it never happens again. I don't really know what the hell happened. My family hails from the deep south, and so we have tons of spooky stories and tales and everything else. This one is standard fare, very typical of the kinds of stories that I grew up hearing. It was told to me by my mother. So Mom's cousin, Theo, was a preacher man who didn't believe in God anymore. He lost his faith after his daughter died, but he felt like he'd be letting everybody down if he gave up preaching, so he kept at it. Week after week, he's growing more and more bitter. He sits down at his desk one night and pulls out his pistol and holds it to his head. He's about to pull the trigger when there's a knock at the door. It's an older woman, a parishioner. He knows her very well. Her husband died a few years back, but she never remarried. In fact, now she cleans houses 7 days a week for 10 hours a day, just trying to make ends meet for herself and her 2 children. Tears are streaming down her face, and Theo invites her in. Her eyes dart around the room. She tells Theo that she's been waking up every night to a strange man standing by her bedside. He talks to her. At first, she'd shut her eyes and force herself back to sleep through the terror. But every night, he's there again, and he always says the same thing. He says there's money buried out near the house, and it's not for anybody else but you. Eventually, she became accustomed to these visits, and she ventured to ask him where the money is buried. But he won't tell her unless she promises to bring the preacher man Theo. Night after night, he says the same thing. And tonight, she finally decided that she couldn't take it anymore. "Won't you come with me, so he'll leave me alone?" she asked him. Theo, of course, has fully lost faith in not just God, but in spirits and the afterlife, but the woman is clearly distraught, so he accompanies her home. They get out to her little house. It sits all alone in the hills. It's empty when they get there, and the woman says, "He'll be back if I go to sleep." So Theo sits in the kitchen, somewhat annoyed, while the woman goes to bed. He sits for a long while thinking about his daughter when he hears a man's voice. It's clear as day, but there's nobody around. The hair on the back of Theo's neck stands up as the voice speaks to him. It tells him where the money is buried, and it tells him that it belongs to the woman and nobody else. Then it tells him that it needs a favor. Theo must dedicate a sermon to such and such person. He must light 2 candles before the sermon, and he must not finish until the candles go out. Then the room is silent. After a long, bewildered moment, Theo goes to wake the woman from her sleep. He explains what he was told, and the 2 go outside to dig. They dig for what feels like a long time, until they uncover what looks like a large clay vessel. It's full of not just money, but gold coins. The woman can't believe her eyes. This vessel is enormous. She'll never have to work again. The woman is a friend of the family's, and while I know of her, she and I have never spoken. She's got a beautiful house, though, because she tore down the original house and built the new one on top of the place to try and forget the past and how hard things were. Theo, on the other hand, he delivered the sermon as promised, and the man never appeared again. In the end, he slowly regained his faith after this. My mom was at his bedside when he died, and she said that he smiled. Tears flooded from his eyes, and he called out his daughter's name and said she was there to take him home. And then he passed away. So this happened a couple years ago now. My friends wanted to go deep in the woods for a couple days for a camping trip. Now, I hate camping, but I think whatever, I'll go chill with my bros, of course. We end up traveling pretty far out there, and we hike up to this clearing. It seems really peaceful. One of my friends, we'll call him John, likes to buy high-end military gear and guns. I'm talking like everything. The rifles, the night vision goggles, the military vests, the boots, the works. You get what I mean. As for me, I'm not really that into guns or anything, but I'll definitely spend the day drinking with my friends, and I'll maybe take a couple pot shots at some empty cans after we get our tent set up. So now, we end up doing this a little too long, and the sun's already setting before we realized how dark it was getting. My other friend, I'll call him Dave, realizes that we just kinda screwed around way too long, and we have to get a fire going to cook the food that we brought with us. He says to me, "You and John should stay here and get the rest of the stuff set up from the truck while I go get some firewood." And I just think Dave is pretty ballsy for just walking off into the forest while it's getting dark. So we set up a spot for the fire, and we're getting our food out while John just screws around with his night vision goggles because it's already gotten dark out. I'm kind of getting mad at him because he's not helping at all, and I'm just about to yell at him, and just as I'm about to say something, I notice that he's absolutely deadpan still with his goggles on. Like, more still than I've ever seen him before. He's just standing there like a deer in the headlights. John suddenly grabs my arm like he was trying to rip it off or something, and he just goes, "Do you see that?" I look at the tree line where he's looking, but I can see something moving around, but I don't know what it is. It looks to be standing upright, and it has a human profile. I thought that it was really odd, but given that I couldn't really see the whole thing, I just kinda blew it off as that's probably just Dave getting wood. And then he takes off his goggles and hands them to me. I look at whoever that is now and I can see them better. It's a clown. It's just a clown, standing there completely still with its back facing us, and its suit's all dirty and everything. I think Dave is trying to mess with us, and I yell to him, "Honk honk," and his head jerks around in an instant to look at us. Both of us realize that it's not Dave, and we're starting to feel really freaked out. We hear branches snapping behind us. Me and John jump out of our skin. It's Dave. John is losing his shit right now trying to tell Dave about the clown, and he thinks that we're just screwing with him. He says, "Guys, I don't see a clown. I think you're watching too many horror movies." We point to where the clown is and let Dave use the goggles. And he says, guys, there's nothing there. We take another look. It's just gone. I go into panic mode. Dave starts laughing because he still thinks that we're trying to scare him. And then we hear this weird noise deeper in the forest. It sounds like a dying mule or something. It's really far off, but slowly getting louder. We start to realize that it's not a dying animal. It sounds like a laugh, but not a normal laugh. It's like if something had no concept of laughter that was trying to mimic Dave's laugh from earlier. Right then and there, we decide that it's best just to get the hell out of there, so we book it and leave the camping stuff right there, and we end up spending the night at John's house, and nobody really wanted to talk about what happened. They still don't. So, what did you think of those stories? Which one was your favorite one? Do you have any of your own stories? You can let me know your favorite one down in the comments, and if you want to send in your story, I have an email down below. And if you want to support the channel, there's other links in the description below as well. So, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you had fun pulling up a stump with me to hear some stories. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.